Hello and welcome to this video. In this episode, I will provide you with important tips on how to introduce your essays. I will help you to learn what is an introduction, what functions does an introduction accomplish, what to avoid when writing essay introductions, and what expert authors tell us about what works for effective introductions. We will also analyze a few sample essay introductions. And at last, the video presents some useful additional tips to boost the quality of your essay introductions. So if you want to receive more of this content, subscribe to the channel below and hit the notification bell. And don't forget to like the video and share it. Certainly, if you have any comments or questions, drop them in the space below, and I would be more than happy to answer them as soon and as accurate as I can. It is commonly known that an essay has three parts: an introduction, the body, and a conclusion. Introduction and conclusions play a special role in the academic essay, and they frequently demand much of your attention as a writer. An essay is not like a mystery novel, which keeps the reader in suspense. It should not slowly reveal the argument to the reader. Instead, the contention and supporting arguments are usually stated in the introduction. After reading your introduction, your readers should not have any major surprises in store when they read the main body of your paper. So, let's start with the first element. What is an introduction? An introduction is the opening paragraph of your essay. It includes a set of related sentences that present the main idea of the essay. Why bother writing a good introduction? Usually, when you sit down to respond to an assignment, you have at least some ideas of what you want to say in the body of your paper. But these middle parts of the paper can't just come unexpectedly. They need to be introduced and conclude in a way that makes sense to your reader. A good introduction is important because you never get a second chance to make a first impression on your reader. Therefore, the opening paragraph of your paper will provide your readers with their initial impressions of the argument, of your writing style, and of the overall quality of your work. A vague, disorganized, error-filled, off-the-wall, or boring introduction will probably create a negative impression. On the other hand, a concise, engaging, well-written introduction will start off your readers admiring your analytical and your writing skill. Most readers still dread showing their written work to others and asking for feedback because they are uncertain of their own abilities to well structure all parts of the essay, mainly during exam. The truth is, there is no universal template that you can learn in order to solve all your essay writing problems. However, improvement is always possible, and this is why we decided to assist you in becoming a better essay writer. What does an introduction do? An introduction is a roadmap that should introduce the topic and focus and let your readers know what your essay is about. Show how you understand the question. Provide essential context, necessary background information about time, setting, variables, characters, events, etc. Describe briefly how you intend or plan to proceed with your discussion. Key ideas, main points, claims, answers to the question. Act as a bridge that transports your readers from their own ideas into the place of your analysis and helps your readers make a transition between their own world and the issues you will be writing about. Capture your readers' interest, making them want to read the rest of your paper. Create tension. You can use the introduction to raise an interesting question or problem, show that there is something at stake, and provide a solution that's clever and intriguing. Explain key terms related to your topic if necessary. And last, make a logical and smooth transition to the body of your paper. What is the structure of an introduction? Always remember that an essay exam does not require a smooth and inviting opening. In general, we recommend that you construct your introduction around your thesis statement. When writing an introduction, you should typically use a general to specific structure. You should first give some general information and then gradually narrow it down into specific points. That is, introduce the particular problem or topic the essay will address in general to provide context before narrowing down to your particular position and line of argument. You can proceed as follows. Hook the reader, present your topic and its importance, state your thesis, outline main points. An introduction usually consists of these four parts. Let's look at these parts in more detail. Part 1. Hook or attention grabber. This is a single sentence used as an effective introduction starter for an essay to catch the reader's attention. Part 2. Connections. After you hook, write a sentence or two about the specific focus and importance of your paper. Contextualizing your introduction will help to provide your readers with complete information about the topic of your essay. However, be sure to keep these sentences concise and straight to the point. Part 3. Thesis statement. Thesis statement is the most direct answer to the question or solution to the problem, and the point around which all your essay revolves. As a rule, a good thesis statement is very concise, disclosed in one sentence, accurate, easy to find, specific, clear, and focused. An effective thesis statement provides a sense of direction, while the rest of the introduction helps the readers make sense of the thesis. Often, you can rephrase the exam question as a thesis statement. For example, the American History exam. Give a detailed summary of the effects of the Great Depression on the United States, briefly discussing the major causes of the economic collapse. This question suggests the following thesis statement.
The Great Depression, caused by the American government's economic policies, had major political, economic, and social effects on the United States.
This effective thesis statement addresses all aspects of the question but highlights only relevant concerns. In opposite, the following thesis statements are not effective.
Vague thesis statement. The Great Depression, caused largely by profligate spending patterns, had a number of very important results. Incomplete thesis statement. The Great Depression caused major upheaval in the United States. Irrelevant thesis statement. The Great Depression, caused largely by America's poor response to the 1929 stock market crash, had more important consequences than World War II did.
Again, let's say you are analyzing Shakespeare's Sonnet 55. Here are some arguments you might make. Note that your thesis can be more than just one sentence.
Shakespeare's Sonnet 55 offers the beloved great fame, yet ironically fails to give any description of the beloved. The result of this discrepancy is that only the poet, who has the ability to bestow poetic immortality, becomes famous. Sonnet 55 reveals a tension between a humanist sense of time, which focuses on the here and now, and a Christian sense of time, which places greater importance on life after the ending doom. Shakespeare constructs Sonnet 55 like a rational argument with distinct steps, rather than as an emotional plea.
By contrast, here are some bad thesis statements.
Sonnet 55 describes Shakespeare's passionate love which will last forever. Shakespeare's Sonnet 55 was written in the Renaissance period and is still read today. Shakespeare's Sonnet 55 contains a hidden code that reveals that he slept with a prostitute.
These theses are too broad, state the obvious, or consist of speculation. Your thesis needs to be specific and provable. As writing is work in progress, which means that you won't know the exact shape of your introduction until you finish your body paragraph. In that sense, you should always be ready to adapt your thesis as your argument comes into focus.
The fourth component is presenting the key claims.
An introduction should give the reader a glimpse into your thoughts and key points on the subject. If the question is, why is Curly's wife an important character in the novella of Mice and Men? You could introduce the essay by saying,
Curly's wife is an important character in the novella because she is a symbol of loneliness. Along with Crooks and Candy, she comes to represent the loneliness of the outsider in society. Her character also shows the reader how women were treated and the emptiness of the American dream.
Although introductory paragraphs usually follow the same set of structure, the content placed within its text may differ according to subject, purpose, and audience. How much time to spend on an introduction? The content and style of an introduction will depend on the purpose of your essay and the discipline in which you are writing. In all cases, do not spend too much time writing an introductory paragraph. Your instructor is already committed to reading your paper, and don't bother crafting an elaborate or unusual introduction. Your time is precious, and so is your readers. So keep it short and focused. By referring to your outline, you could begin by defining essential terms, providing a brief context if appropriate, and by explaining why you think the subject is significant or interesting. Then, immediately jot down a simple statement of your thesis that summarizes your answer. This is your best introductory strategy that reminds you to address the question directly. How long should an introduction be? Generally, there are no strict rules about how long an introductory paragraph should be. Experienced essay writers will usually shape the lengths of their introductions with the overall length of the paper in mind. You can't possibly cover everything on a topic, and you are not expected to. So, you need to tell your reader how you have chosen to narrow the focus of your essay. Experienced writers recommend that your introductory paragraphs be between 5% and 15% of your essay's total word count. This means that the size of a standard 5-paragraph essay should be about 3 to 5 sentences maximum. What to avoid in an introduction? We have mentioned before that introduction writing is a process that many students struggle with. So let's review what not to do in your introduction. 1. Avoid wrong tone. Unless you are writing a book review or you are writing for a popular audience, you do not need to praise or condemn the object of the study. There is no need to say that Shakespeare was a genius or that Picasso was the greatest modernist artist. Neither do you need to provide some moral lesson. For example, Madame Bovary may demonstrate that adultery does not always lead to happiness, but that should not be the focus of your argument. Concentrate on analysis instead. Number 2, avoid clutter. Don't fall for the trap of including too much material in the introduction. If your essay is relatively short, your introduction shouldn't be much longer than half a page. To prevent your introduction from looking like an overgrown garden, keep background information to a minimum. Use quotations sparingly and focus your attention on your own argument. Remember that later paragraphs can still include some introductory material. So, focus on the big picture first and save many of the details for later. Number 5. Avoid generalizations. Overused phrases such as "from the beginning of time," "throughout history," "nowadays," "man has always wondered," broad, sweeping statements that more often do not connect to the thesis statement and are a kind of filler, I mean something you write when you don't have much to say. In addition, when you make such claims, if you don't follow such a big statement, something equally grand later in the body of your essay, your introduction will fall a little flat. Again, avoid using expressions like "war has always been a problem for humanity," or "history always repeats itself," or "the Vikings were courageous pagan explorers," etc. These sentences are useless. Instead, make sure that your initial sentence relates directly to the problem, question, or issue highlighted by the essay topic. A generalization may contain an element of truth, but does not take into account exceptions to the rule. Number 6, don't use quotes randomly. Avoid using memorable quotations or too many quotes or those from unknown people. Unless you intend to fully explain its relevance in the introduction of your paper, do not preface your essay with a quotation. Many students try to strike a tone by including a profound statement by an authoritative figure, either contemporary or historical. Unfortunately, these quotations often betray the student's bias before the professor has even begun to read the paper and are irrelevant to the thesis statement. It's true that a quote can be useful sometimes, but you need to determine if it really adds anything to your introduction or merely takes up space. For example, if you are diving into an essay on Hamlet, starting it out with "to be or not to be" may seem like a good idea, but that does not really say much about your essay argument unless your essay is on this specific passage. It is preferred then that you begin your paper with your own words. Avoid dictionary definitions. When a professor reads a paper that begins with a dictionary definition, his or her first thought is likely that this is going to be an unoriginal essay. That is because the dictionary introduction is an overused style that professors see all the time. While it is important to define your concepts, dictionary definitions do not generally provide definitions that are relevant to the context of your assignment or specific to your discipline. The truth is, knowing what the dictionary says about a specific topic does little to frame your argument and almost nothing to draw your readers in. Also, unless you are talking about something that is incredibly obscure, it is likely that your readers already know the definition of what you are writing about. If you want to start with a definition that is authoritative, try to find one that is written by an expert in your field, or develop one yourself. Avoid the BS introduction. The bullshit introduction is the introduction written for the sake of having an introduction. This kind of introduction doesn't say very much, as the concepts presented are vague and glossed over, and sentences are often repetitive. Also, this kind of introduction communicates to your professor that you are not confident about your topic and that you don't have much to say. Some people are far too ambitious in writing their introductions. However, writing a lengthy, redundant introduction limits the number of words available for the main body of the assignment. Avoid the insufficient context or no context introduction. These abridged introductions get to the point too quickly. They jump right to the thesis statement without providing any context for the argument. Your introduction should provide a scenario so that your reader knows how to situate the topic you are discussing. Beware of neglecting a thesis statement. If you do not reveal the statement on the main idea of your essay, you are unable to tell the readers what your writing is all about. Don't repeat the assignment specifications using the same wording. Avoid the book report introduction. This introduction gives the name of the author, tells what the book is about, and offers other basic facts about the book. Students resort to this sort of introduction when they are trying to fill space because it is familiar, comfortable formula. However, it is ineffective because it offers irrelevant details that add nothing new to the reader. Don't apologize. Never suggest that you don't know what you are talking about or that you are not enough an expert in this matter. Avoid phrases like the following: in my humble opinion, I am not sure about this, but... Try not to announce your intentions. Do not flatly announce what you are about to do in an essay. Rather show, don't tell, and get into the topic to let your reader perceive your purpose in the topic sentence of your opening paragraph. Common types of introductions. Writing the introductory paragraph can be a frustrating and slow process, but it does not have to be. If you planned your paper out well, then most of the introductory paragraph is already written. Experienced authors often use the following strategies to begin their essays. 1. Inquisitive introduction. Through this technique, you explain why your subject is important, curious, or interesting. Asking questions also can be a powerful, effective technique in introductions. It poses a hypothetical scenario to the reader and invites them to imagine their response, apply their own judgment or opinion, and relate their own lived experience to the material that follows. However, beware as to disappointing the reader if you fail to fully answer the question in the body of the essay. Type 2. Paradoxical introduction. Through this technique, you explain what aspects of your subject seem improbable. Explain any strange or unusual perspectives that people might have on your subject. It is a turnabout strategy that starts with the opposite idea and then moves to the focus. Type 3. Corrective introduction. Here, you explain how your subject has been misunderstood or misrepresented by others, and then you challenge it and propose how will your essay fix these misconceptions. Type 4. Preparatory introductions. This method works best with emerging topics or multifaceted issues. It allows you to choose and establish a clearly defined position on an issue and explain the specific and unique way in which you will discuss it. It reveals background information leading to a focused thesis statement. Number 5. Narrative or dramatic introduction. You can lead to your subject by narrating a story or anecdote. Dramatization enrolls as an eyewitness account. As human beings, we are hardwired to respond to stories, so make sure to bring vivid sensory images to connect with the reader and add intrigue along with just enough information so your readers want to find out more. Number 6. Other possibilities. It is always a good idea for you to experiment with different strategies of writing introductions for different topics and see how it works best for you. You can try 1. Create an analogy. Analogies are powerful tools that can help you more clearly explain ideas, especially if your ideas are complex. 2. Statistic or facts. This is most effective for serious academic essays that turn ideas into numbers. 3. Temporary introduction. Many writers find it useful to write a warm-up paragraph to get them into the essay, and then they will go back and delete the running start later. At this stage of our presentation, let us examine sampler introductions. Following is an example of an introduction with its key aspects identified in the text box.
Question: to what extent can the American Revolution be understood as a revolution from below? Why did working people become involved and with what aims in mind? Opening paragraph. Historians generally concentrate on the 20-year period between 1763 and 1783 as the period which constitutes the American Revolution. However, when considering the involvement of working people, or people from below in the revolution, it is important to make a distinction between the pre-revolutionary period 17,631,774 and their evolution of 1774-1788. Marked by the establishment of the Continental Congress. This paper will argue that the nature and aims of the actions of working people are difficult to assess as it changed according to each phase. The revolutionary period was characterized by opposition to Britain's authority. During this period, the aims and actions of the working people were more conservative as they responded to grievances related to taxes and scarce land, issues which directly affected them. However, examination of activities such as the organization of crowd action and meetings, pamphlet writing, formal communications to Britain of American grievances and physical action in the streets demonstrates that their aims and actions became more revolutionary after 1775.
The structure of this introduction can be analyzed as follows. Sentence 1 sets general context of the period. Sentence 2 how the key term from below is interpreted. Sentence 3 thesis statement or the statement of the argument. And sentence 4 an indication of the answer. Sentence 5 elaboration on content of the essay. Some general advice about introductions. Beware of the dangers of sinking too much time into the introduction. Remember that you may at a later stage need to compress your introduction. It can be fine to leave the writing of the introduction for a later stage of the essay writing. Keep the introduction short and keep it succinct and to the point. Minimize meta-discourse. Avoid cliches such as leave no stone unturned. Such overused writing has lost all their effectiveness. Instead, use fresh and interesting language. Avoid truism, which is an observation that is so obviously true that it usually does not need stating. Just because something is true doesn't mean it needs to be mentioned. Address and answer the question directly and exactly in the first 1 or 2 sentences of your response by referring to the key terms in the question itself without merely restating it. A grader wants to know from the beginning that you are on the right track. Avoid empty emphatic words like this important study or fascinating or interesting results. Let the argument speak for itself. Don't dress up your thesis with spot circular statements. In other words, explaining things with their synonyms. Keep the promise. Writers often want to impress the readers at once, promising things, answers that they are not able to keep. So, make sure you provide all the answers in your essay. Overall, coming up with a good non-cliché introduction to your essay isn't an easy thing. This ability develops with practice. So, if you can't think of something when you start writing an essay, don't worry about it. Most likely, as you start writing, an argument will make itself evident in your prose. Once you have a few paragraphs written, it will be much more natural to simply and clearly fix the argument in your introduction. If you have questions on writing essays, please write them down in the comment space below. Our next video will guide you through the process of writing effective body paragraphs and conclusions. So make sure to catch up with new released videos by hitting the notification bell. If you like the video, give us a thumb up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to encourage us to create more valuable content. Thank you and see you soon.